Hey guys, welcome back to day 2 of Vlogmas. Today I am doing a budgeting related video, and actually in the future I hope to do a lot more of these videos, so let me know if you guys enjoy this video down below. Today's video will cover essentially the basics of creating a budget along with some rules I personally like to follow in my life. If you check back tomorrow, I will be doing a budget with me in which I apply these rules on my own budget, and you will get to see how I do my budget from month to month. So yeah, let's just get right into the video on basically the introductory to budgeting. Also, I forgot to mention, I will have timestamp down below in the description to help you guys navigate throughout the video in case you guys already know some of the terminologies I am explaining. So to start off, the rules I personally follow in my own budget is the Dave Ramsey method along with the 50-30-20 rule. Don't worry too much if you don't know what the Dave Ramsey method is or the 50-30-20 rule. I will be explaining these in kind of a simpler term, but if you want to, you can always look them up after the video if you want a broader understanding. For me personally, these two combinations worked the best for me in terms of creating my own personal budget that really suit my lifestyle. So before I start, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on myself so that you kind of have a better understanding of where I stand in my life and how this budget has helped me, or why this budget really suits my lifestyle. So as you can see, I accidentally wrote down that I was a 24-year-old female. I'm actually 23. I don't know why I wrote 24. And that I have been debt-free for about a year now. I paid off all my student loans, I want to say back in March or April. The only loan I have outstanding right now is my auto loan. And I've been budgeting since I was 18 and in the beginning of college. And lastly, and this is like one of the key things, is that the reason why this budget works for me very well is because I also do have a full-time job. So let's start off with the 50-30-20 rule. I know I wrote the 50-20-30 rule, but it's the same thing. And what that essentially means is that 50% of your income after tax will go to necessities. And after that, 30% of your income goes to wants and 20% goes to savings. This is what some financial experts believe to be kind of the golden ranges you want to keep your living expenses to be in. So to start off, I'm going to go through what categories fall into the different percentages, and I made things a little bit easier for myself by creating a simple per each percentage. So examples for necessaries can be like groceries, car gas, housing, whether it's rent or your monthly payment for your house, your phone bill, your gas, electricity, water, sewage. Those are all things that we would consider necessary to survive or live on a day-to-day basis. After that, we have the wants category, and some things that will fall in wants are pretty self-explanatory. Things like stickers, or eating out sometimes, drinking coffee or boba. All of those things are considered wants and not needs. Another example is like your monthly Spotify payment. That is also considered a want. Lastly, if you like to spend money on going out and watching movies, that is also considered a want because it's like an entertainment. So your savings is relatively self-explanatory. Some things I like to call my savings are my sinking funds, and I'll go into a little bit more details what sinking funds are. So examples of sinking funds are birthday funds, Christmas funds, car funds, etc. And this is where I got the idea from Dave Ramsey, which he totally thinks about having specific funds for each individual event. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a little bit about that. Other things that could be considered savings is if you're contributing to an IRA or a 401k. In addition to that, I also think having an emergency saving is key and crucial. And that is just kind of like the basic example of what is in each individual category. However, there is one thing that I did not address in any of these categories, and it is loans. So personally, in my own personal opinion, I believe loans should be paid off as soon as possible, as much as possible, and you want to allocate as much of your funds to your loans as possible. So what I mean by that is after you have categorized everything in your necessities and you realize that there are maybe 20% left over in your necessities that you have free and opened up, you should use that to pay off your loans. Your loans is part of the necessities in my own personal opinion, and actually on top of that, I also believe it goes into savings. So whatever you have left over after you do all the calculations, and I'll show you how to do the calculations in just a little bit, timestamps will be down below, but I will show you if you have anything left over, you should always allocate any money that you have into paying off your loans. And this is really crucial because debt will snowball really fast. You might not think 5% is a lot, but over time the interest will compound and you'll end up paying a whole lot more than you would expect. When you are paying off your loans, make sure to prioritize the ones that have higher interest rate, higher APRs, because those are the ones who will keep dragging you down again and again and again. Here I gave you guys a quick snapshot of everything I've written down on this piece of paper. Feel free to take a screenshot. So let's get started with all the steps to creating an actual working budget. So the very first step is to calculate your take-home money, meaning your post-tax income. Some companies don't do this automatically for you. For instance, if you drive Uber, they don't automatically withhold your taxes. So essentially how you calculate this, it's a very simple formula and you can actually go online to check it out. But you need to calculate what is your tax amount. What you just need to do is multiply your income by the tax amount and then subtract that amount from your income. The second step is to write down all your recurring payments. These are payments that you always have to pay every single month. That means things like gas, electricity bill, your water bill, your rent, Simply Gilded subscription, your Spotify subscription. These are all reoccurring payments you make month to month. Third, write down all of your sinking funds. And here is where I'm just gonna flip to another page and do a little guide on what a sinking fund is. Timestamps on when I continue with the budgeting steps will be in the description as I mentioned earlier. So sinking funds, what are they? It's basically a fund where you save a small amount every month for a certain block of time before you spend it. And I will have some examples as I'm explaining this to you, but essentially it's just a way to get out of randomly withdrawing a huge amount of money for a specific month when you could have already anticipated it months in advance. So some of the categories that I highly recommend you having for your sinking funds are birthdays, Christmas, health, and car. Christmas and birthday are pretty self-explanatory. You know how many people you need to celebrate, and you know that you will always have to spend a little bit of money during Christmas time for all the presents, so it's best to start saving early. For health and car, both of these come out in spontaneous moments. You'll never know when your car might break or when you need to get your oil change, so having a little bit of money put aside every month for those unexpected events might be better. So how do you create a sinking fund? I'm gonna go step by step in how you're going to create it. The example I'll be doing is going to be a birthday example. So step 1 is to calculate or create a yearly limit. What I mean by that is either you have a goal in mind about how much you want to save up for a specific category, such as your health or car sinking fund, or if you want to calculate how much you want to spend a year on birthday presents or Christmas presents for all of your friends. So for this example, I need to calculate how much money I need to save up to accommodate all the presents I will buy for my friends this year. In my example, I will have 5 friends who will receive $10 presents and 5 friends who will receive $50 presents. And I calculated that to be $300 total in which I need to save by the end of the year so I can accommodate this. Step number 2 is to figure out what your monthly contribution is to this sinking fund. And in order to do this, you need to divide the total amount by 12 months, so by 12. In my case, I will need to contribute $25 a month towards the sinking fund. So now I'm going to explain to you how to use the sinking fund. Essentially, whenever you purchase or make a payment for that specific sinking fund category, for example, if I'm buying a birthday present for my friend, I will withdraw money from that specific sinking fund to pay myself back. The key here is that you need to make sure you keep track of the amount you withdraw from your sinking fund and deposit. Some people like to have a separate savings account with their bank purely just for sinking funds. If you don't want to open an entirely new savings account, a good alternative is to always withdraw that amount of money for the sinking funds a month and use a cash envelope. I know this isn't the traditional cash envelope that Dave Ramsey talks about, but it could also be used in play. What you essentially do is that for each month, I will withdraw $25 from my bank and I will put it in that cash envelope. And when I need to go out and purchase something for my friend's birthday, I will bring that envelope with me and use the money from that specific envelope to pay for my friend's birthday present. The same idea goes for whether it's your car maintenance, your health insurance or your health bills, or some Christmas presents. That way, you don't really have to keep track. However, how I like to do it is just to have a spreadsheet where I log how much money I deposited, my current standing, and how much I withdraw from it. Of course, if you guys would like to see how I track my sinking funds and how I even budget in the first place, make sure to check back tomorrow for my Budget With Me video. So, detour aside, let's get back to how we can create a budget now that we know how to create a sinking fund. Step 4 is that you want to write down all the categories of your spending. Example categories are groceries, coffee, restaurant, gas, necessary purchases, sticker purchases, commute expenses. Step 5 is to write down the estimate per category that you believe you will spend per month. And the key here is to be really honest with yourself. It's okay if you undershoot or overshoot. Again, it is just an estimate. And over time, you will be making better estimates. So right now, just do your best, but be sure to be honest with yourself and really ask, are you really going to only be spending $100 on stickers this month? Because I know I don't. So for step 6, after you have written down your income, all your recurring payments, your sinking fund, and all of the different categories that you have written down along with its estimate, go back in and categorize them, whether they are necessities, savings, or is it a want. Here, I actually went ahead and did an example with you guys so that you can see me do this as well. All of these numbers are just sample numbers so that it'll be easier to calculate the percentages in the next step. So as you can see, I went in with my reoccurring categories that I have listed in step 2 first. And here I'm just labeling it as whether it is a necessity, want, or savings. Gas and water bill are necessities. My rent is a necessity. My Simply Gilded subscription box is a want, and so is my Spotify subscription. For my savings category, it's pretty self-explanatory. It is all savings, whether it is my IRA, my birthday fund, or my Christmas sinking fund. So categories is where it gets a little bit creative and requires a little bit more of effort into deciding whether it's a necessity or want. For me, I consider groceries to be a necessity while eating out at a restaurant as a want. Similarly with coffee, it is also a want. Gas is a necessity because I need it to go to work, and necessary purchases are necessary. So blinking back to my sheet of paper that I was writing down all the steps for you guys, step 7 is to add up all the categories referring to necessity, wants, or savings. And step 8 is to calculate the percentage to see if it matches the 50-30-20 rule. And don't worry if it doesn't match up to the 50-30-20 rule to the exact dot. So going back to my example sheet, I'm going to start adding up all the categories under needs, wants, and savings. For the needs category, so far my expenses add up to $33. For my wants category, all my expenses is estimated to be $9. And my savings is going to be $12. Now, in order to calculate how much of a percentage it is based on my income, I'm just going to divide that by my income, which is $100, which I made just to make my life a little bit easier. So for my needs, it's 33% of my income. My wants is 9% and my savings is 12%. I know I wrote 30% on the screen on my paper, but that's because I'm bad at math. So having leftover percentages or money is definitely okay. That's actually great. And if you don't have any loans, I would personally prefer with the leftover money, you want to add as much as possible into your savings because I personally like to save my money for the future. Other categories of savings you can have is like a vacation fund, an emergency fund if you do not already have one, a laptop fund which I'm trying to build up to buy a new laptop, or even a clothing fund. However, I cannot stress this enough is that if you have loans, you need to prioritize that the most after necessities and savings. Actually, in some cases, if your loans are so high, you want to prioritize that before your savings even. So all your savings would actually go into those loans. So in the case like this, you have approximately 20% left over from your necessities to pay off your loans. You want to use that 20% to put into all of the loans that you still have outstanding. Similarly, with the 9%, you have a leftover 11% in your savings that you should be putting into your loans. If you have loans, it is key not to go past the 30% want category because it should be a fixed position for you in that case because your priority should be on trying to reduce the amount of loans you have since they can accumulate faster than you can imagine. And now that you have finished calculating your percentage and building this budget, you will now see where you lie in the 50-30-20 rule. It is okay if your percentages is off by 0 to 10%, it's not that big of a deal. When you see my budget, you'll see that I'm more in a 40-30-30 zone, but between a 10% difference is not that big of a deal. The only time when I step in and say, hey, maybe you should cut back on the percentage is if you have a loan. If you have a loan, it is key not to go over the 30% budget rule because that is one of the key ways to improve your financial situation and allocate more money into paying off your loans. I know some people, I know my friends who actually only have like 10% in wants category because they want to snowball and pay off their debt as fast as possible. And if that's your case and you can do it, I definitely commend you and I definitely push you to do that. If it's too off, say between 15% to 20% on some of the category, make sure to reflect back on your lifestyle and see how it's affecting you. Whether it be that your necessities are too high, if you're realizing that maybe you're living way beyond your means, or the apartment you're living in is a little bit too expensive and you didn't realize how much it affected your budget before, or whether you want to allocate more funds into your savings to save up for a down payment on a house, save up for a vacation trip that you've been planning, or maybe even grow your emergency fund if you don't have one already. And again, I want to emphasize that this is more of a guideline and you don't necessarily have to follow this straight to a T. If you find something that works better for you, go ahead and do it, because the whole point here is to gain the financial freedom that you want. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys for today. And in case I was super confusing or something like that, I created a printable down below that will probably be a lot clearer than this video because I'm much better at writing, but please excuse any grammatical errors I may have because I'm really bad at English and I'm about to go type it right now at 10 p.m. So the English being bad at it part will multiply by like 10. If you guys are interested in a more in-depth tutorial or in-depth budgeting plan, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I will have a personal budget with me video up tomorrow to showcase you how this applies in my own personal budget from month to month. So make sure you guys check that out tomorrow. And thank you so much for watching and enduring with me this whole 20-minute video. I will see you tomorrow. Bye!